Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for our virtual open house for the SPP and the CMHC programs at University of Western States. My name is Laura Burbano, and I am one of the admissions advisors. So, next slide. Okay, so the schedule for today's open house will be welcome, of course, from me, Laura Urbano, admissions advisor, but we also will have Dr. Sara Castillo from the SPP programs joining us and Dr. Rose from the CMHC programs. And let's start with that.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, wonderful. So what to expect for today's webinar? So basically you are in listen only mode. If you have any questions at all, please just go ahead and use the chat box. We'll try to get to all your questions today, but if for any reason we cannot, so please feel free to email admissions@uws.edu and we'll just try to get back to you with any answers to your questions. Today we have here joining us two students from the SPP and the CMHC programs, actually, Jeremiah Palmer and Chris Foster. So Chris, if you please start your video so that the audience can see you. So the idea of today's webinar is just to have a relaxed conversation about their experiences attending the program, the SPP and the CMHC program, any tips that they have to share with our applicants. But we're going to start first with a little bit of an introduction in regards to the sport and performance psychology programs, and we're going to do the same with the clinical mental health counseling program. We want to share with you today about the standardized patient program. We received so many questions about what's the standardized patient program and why it's so unique for us here in UWS. So we're going to get to that. So we're going to start then with Dr. Sara Castillo, who will share a little bit about the SPP, the master's concentrations, and also the standalone doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology concentration options.
That's a lot to say. Well done, Laura.
I know.
Thank you. So what we've done in our programs is really kind of structured it so that students can come in and really get what they want out of our programs. So we've got students that come from all different walks of life, all different places in their lives, all different careers, past and present. And so what we found is that our students actually have the opportunity and really enjoy being able to select a way that works for them to really make their degree what they want it to be. So in our master's program, we've created two concentrations. The first one is applied practice. That's an opportunity for students at the master's level to gain some mentorship and some applied experience in sport and performance psychology consulting. A master's degree is sort of the entry-level degree for that workspace. So being able to get all of the coursework done that's required for that CMPC certification, if that's something you're interested in, all gets done in our core courses. And then the way that you'll be able to select from your 3 elective options is where those concentrations come in. So in the applied practice concentration, you'll be able to get some really in-depth study on how to design and create interventions. And then you'll work with a UWS faculty member who is on the ASP registry of applied mentors. You'll be able to get some applied hours and have some really direct supervision of that work with someone on our faculty. You won't be able to complete all of the hours for the CMPC, and really that's true of any master's program. It's very challenging in such a short time with so much coursework required to complete all of the hours of mentorship that are needed. But you'll get a great head start on it. You'll complete a minimum of 50. That's about 25%. And you'll have that relationship with both the individuals or the team that you're working with, as well as your mentor that can certainly continue on after you graduate. Our second concentration in the master's degree is our positive coaching concentration. And the 3 courses there really help with the idea of implementing the principles and performance ideas behind positive psychology, which was developed by Martin Seligman out at the University of Pennsylvania. The idea is really to figure out how to be a more effective coach and a more effective leader, a more effective administrator, and to really be able to work with organizations and teams to develop that level of cohesion and motivation that puts everyone on the path towards success. The folks that tend to choose this concentration are folks that are already working in either athletic administration, want to be able to expand beyond sport and performance, and get into working with administrative in administration, working in corporate populations, folks that are coaches and just want to continue their education and figure out how to be better coaches and keep their athletes and their performers motivated well. You don't have to select a concentration in the MS program. You can simply choose to kind of preserve those 3 electives. And instead of devoting them to either the applied practice concentration or the positive coaching concentration, you can choose from a pretty large list of elective courses that can really help you to kind of hone in on what's most interesting for you. So for instance, if you're involved and you're a current athletic trainer, the MS in sport and performance psychology may be a way to just continue to enhance your skill set, but you still want to be an athletic trainer. Well, in that case, maybe the applied practice or positive coaching concentrations aren't for you, but you can choose from electives like our psychology of sport, of athletic injury and rehabilitation. You can choose concussions or trauma-related things. So there are plenty of ways that you can really kind of boost up what you want to do with your career by selecting the electives that make the most sense. And we've done the same sort of thing in our doctoral program, in our standalone EDD in sport and performance psychology. That's the one that doesn't come with the master's in clinical mental health counseling. What you'll be able to do is choose between 2 concentrations there as well. The first is our sport and performance consulting. That is in the same sort of space as the applied practice concentration at the master's level. But at the doctoral level, you'll actually be able to complete all of the hours required for that CMHC certification and get all of that supervision out of the way. It's the same sort of idea. You'll use your courses to work through our standardized patient program, which we'll talk a bit more about in a minute. And then you'll have a full year of time to spend on getting that mentorship and those applied hours under your belt. The second option in our doctoral programs is our positive leadership and administration concentration. That's similar to the positive coaching concentration at the master's level, but it's a lot more in depth. And instead of just focusing on sport, you'll really be able to broaden out and focus on populations and leadership styles outside of athletics and athletic administration. Again, in our standalone doctoral program, you don't have to select a concentration. You can certainly choose to take those 5 courses and use them as electives. And again, the same thing holds true. You can really kind of build that elective skill set into what you want your degree to be. In our integrated degree, that doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology with clinical mental health counseling, you're also able to complete that sport and performance consulting concentration. There isn't enough room in the degree for you to do the positive leadership and administration, but you are still able to get all those mentorship hours if you want to make sure that you're trained in both the clinical mental health side and the sport and performance consulting side. I know that's a lot of information. I'm glad we're recording this.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Laura.
you so much, Dr. Castillo. So now, Dr. Rose, if you could please share with us a little bit about the standardized patient program for our Masters in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, and anything that you want to share as well about our combined doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology. We have received so many questions in regards to how the standardized patient works, what makes it unique. Is this truly a really effective tool to practice the counseling skills that our students need? So yeah.
Lots to talk about. And for those of you who are listening and have heard that very quickly described SPP program option list, what I hope you're hearing is the complexity of design. You've got experts in the field who actually know how the degree is used and who have determined the best courses and the best grouping of those courses for people depending on their interest. We've done something similar in CMHC. We've gone to the gold standard accreditors and said, what does a counseling program generally look like? And we designed, even though we're not pursuing CACREP accreditation, we designed our program specifically to model that gold standard. And so you will see, students will see a pretty traditional CMHC 90 credit program. We have a few differences, a few enhancements that really make the program exceptionally valuable. We have two ways that a student can really earn that master's in clinical mental health. One is just applying for our straight master's degree. That's probably for the folks that want to graduate, get right to work as a clinical mental health counselor, and that's their goal. The second path, exact same degree, but the students are enrolling as part of this EDD in sport and performance psychology with clinical mental health counseling. In essence, that's a guaranteed movement if they're successful in the CMHC portion of the program right into an EDD in sport and performance psychology. And that's the reason why we've chosen to pursue MPCAC accreditation rather than CACREP. CACREP has a very professional counselor identity focus, and MPCAC as an accreditor really values the integration of sport and performance psychology, or psychology generally, with clinical counseling. And so this was really the best fit for us, because we're now recognizing, of course, that athletes and performers experience mental health symptoms at the same rate as every other person in the world, and really deserve to be cared for and treated in that way. So we knew some of our students really wanted both professional certificates or licenses. There are a couple of things that make us stand out as a CMHC program when there are many that are available to students or applicants. Number one is that we're a clinical mental health counseling program, and that usually means a focus on individual clients. But we see the value of teaching from a systems perspective, because a lot of our students and applicants have had experience working with groups. I mean, just think about the experience these applicants have working with teams. And when we teach from a systemic perspective, we really offer the opportunity for our graduates to know how to work, not just with individuals, but with couples and families, with children, and with groups or teams. And so that's a huge benefit of our program. Perhaps the one I'm most proud of is the work that our faculty and our standardized patient program have done at this university to create one of the most unique training protocols of any online program I've seen. Standardized patients typically are used in health sciences universities. They are generally medically trained actors who go in and are prepared to tell, like a chiropractic or a naturopathic physician, here are my symptoms. When we heard about this program while we were designing the counseling masters, we asked if we could train them to play mental health clients, and they were eager to jump into that space. We, in essence, wrote very extensive case studies so that they could play a character for 6 weeks, so that in our pre-practicum course, our students would have the opportunity to learn clinical skills and the cadence of counseling without worrying that something they were going to do was going to harm a client. These are very well-trained actors, so they play their characters well, and our students quickly forget that they're actors. And so you see them start to take more risks in their training. They try harder to focus on skill development and to understand the process. And that's a little harder to do when your first experience of counseling is with an actual client, particularly because the acuity of mental health issues in our field is just growing. It's becoming more and more significant. It used to be that back in my day, when I was in a master's program, my first client was somebody we called a worried well. They were just stressed or overwhelmed with some basic issues in life. But now people who are utilizing mental health are having very significant mental health symptoms. And we want our students to be able to practice in a realistic manner, but maybe take some risks. And that's easier to do in the standardized patient program, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rose. So now we're gonna jump into our student panel. So Chris and Jeremiah, welcome and thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We would like to, if you can just please share with the audience a little bit about yourselves. We would love to hear the reasons for choosing the programs that you chose. Why were you interested first in your respective fields? And also, why did you choose UWS to attend? So I know it's like a compound question, but yeah, just please go ahead and any of you who can start, that would be great.
I'll go ahead and kick it off. So welcome, Jeremiah. Where to start? So why did I get interested in the field? I actually started 10 years ago after getting out of service in the military and just kind of having a difficult time transitioning into out of service and back into civilian life. And I'm in the SPP program. And at the time, for me personally, the clinical side of mental health just didn't make sense. And it just didn't work for me, I'll put it that way. So as I was enrolling in undergrad, the last class I had to take was sports psychology. And and within the first week, I'm like, oh, there's more to this. I want to go get a master's degree. So I use sport performance psychology to kind of help me get through a very interesting transitional time within my life. And then I practiced in the field for maybe about 7 years, give or take, and just had met some younger practitioners who had graduate within the recent years, and they were talking about some new theories and new information that I just didn't understand. So I'm like, okay, must be time to go back to school. So as I started looking for a new program to go back to school, found UWS at the first ASP conference that I ever attended in Portland. I sat down with someone there and we kind of just had a discussion, took information, but never really thought I would apply to the program. And then some time later, just decided to give it a shot. And really what drew me to the program was the freedom and the space to be able to learn while working at the same time. And I'll even tell you the big benefit, I'm in Anchorage, Alaska right now, where it's negative 15 degrees. And have 2 quarters of school left and I'm getting ready to move right now. So could you imagine had I been in a different location where I have to move while trying to complete a degree and the time that I might have to take off and not having to do that while actually learning and being able to apply what I learned in real time just based on my current position was really the true reason that I decided to go over the program, and it has been a wonderful experience in the 2.5, 3 years that I've been doing it.
Thank you so much, Jeremiah. So what about you, Chris? So what's your program on why did you choose the field? And yeah, so why did you chose specifically UWS?
Yeah, so I'm in the integrated degree that both Dr. Castillo and Dr. Rose talked about. So pursuing ultimately an EDD in sport and performance psychology, but in the meantime, I'm working towards my master's in counseling. So I'm coming up on my 4th term. We're in our break right now. So after this 4th term that begins here in January, I'll have a year under my belt just in the counseling program. So even though my ultimate goal is this EDD, I've only been taking counseling classes. I have counseling internship coming up. So it's kind of nice to have these 2 separate sections going on. So how I found UWS in the field, I don't really know how I found UWS. It just kind of like it just found me one day. It probably had to do with a sports psychology Google search. So as a former athlete, former coach, sports have always been a huge part of my life. And then was a psychology undergrad in college and knew I wanted to work towards at least a master's degree in some kind of applied way. But when I graduated undergrad, I wasn't quite ready, wasn't quite mature enough, didn't have a good enough idea of what I wanted to do. And so it took almost a decade of growing up and realizing enough time away from my interest in human performance, mental health, and how those two things merge and complement one another and should go together. Enough time away from thinking about those things that I was finally ready. And that kind of began the search process of grad school. And I found UWS initially because they're one of the more and have been one of the more popular sport and performance psychology programs, that they also had this clinical mental health counseling concentration. And I was like, oh my gosh, perfect. Two fields that I definitely I'm interested in. And as someone who kind of finally realized what they wanted to do, I wanted to counsel, but I also wanted to work with athletes on not only their performance, but advocating for athlete mental health. And I wanted to teach. And so I had all these things I wanted to do, but I didn't really know how to go about doing that. And so when I found UWS, it was a perfect fit because it does set you up, at least the integrated degree, in my mind, sets you up so well to do so many different things. So I hope that is helpful and answers the questions you had thrown out, Laura, but that's a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we actually have a question from somebody from the audience for our students regarding the basic class setup structure. So if you care to share a little bit about the class structure, like how was it manageable for you? Like how many hours a week did you dedicate to go through the content of the classes, readings, all of that?
Yeah, I can speak on the counseling piece, and maybe Jeremiah, you can speak on the SPP side. So let me pull up your question here, Jennifer. Basic structure, you have 10 weeks in the term. You have your syllabus laid out for you. But in the actual Canvas, the learning system that we have, you can see week 1, here's your learning materials, your assignment, associated articles that would complement the assignment, and you can go all the way down to week 10. And for someone who is an overachiever and can work long term, you could get your stuff done all at once. I'm not that way. I love how it's broken up by week. So each week I have like a 7-day mindset and I crank out what I need to do for that week. It's very manageable. I think I have a full-time job and I'm a full-time student, and I feel like I'm definitely head above water. It gets busier at times, but it's definitely manageable, especially because now we're doing something that we care about, we're interested in, so it's a little more enjoyable, a little easier maybe. If I could, I'd like to speak a little bit on the SP experience, the standardized patient. So I had the opportunity to go through that last term in my pre-practicum course. So it's kind of the course that prepares you for practicum and internship in counseling. And so I got to work with an actor who portrayed themselves as a mental health client, and it was extremely valuable to be able to practice those counseling skills, to have your textbook and your associated reading materials, and then be able to apply that kind of risk-free. So that was extremely valuable. Definitely a huge asset and advantage of the program is having that SP. And then you have the instructor as well, who's watching your sessions, and so you get that feedback once you turn in that recorded session, and you have a little reflection afterwards, so you can kind of digest what the heck you just did and said and things you might be able to improve upon. And then you get, at least from my instructor, this wonderful, very detailed, thorough feedback on what you could improve upon, maybe how you should focus. For me, it was definitely slowing down and just trying to focus just on empathy, for example, instead of trying to fix or identify the problem all the time. So that's been very valuable. But I'll let Jeremiah talk about SPP.
Yeah, so same thing, 10 weeks. I think, there's discussion boards and a paper that you got to do every so often. But I think there's a substantial amount of reading, but there's time to get it done. But what I would say is when I first started the program, I was taking 3 classes and working a full-time job. And what I realized that, I think it's an individual capacity thing, but I was studying to pass and not studying to learn. So after a few quarters and I took the 3 classes, there's a reason for it, but that's neither here nor there. But I would say, as you go into it and, whether it's the doctorate program and myself here, like the entire purpose of taking this program was to become an expert in the field. So I would say, based on your capacity to learn, maybe not taking as much so you're actually digesting what you're doing while still taking class at the same time. Because it can't, like I said, it's a lot of reading, there's a lot of information coming in, and you just want to give yourself enough time to be able to digest it all.
Thank you so much. And we have another question. So this person from the audience is asking if this experience in the program, like being online, makes you miss also the in-person component that you could have in a program that perhaps is a hybrid program or a fully in-person programs like on-campus program. So did you miss that component, or what was your experience being that our programs are online?
I'll run with this. Personally, I prefer online. And the reason I prefer it is I'm just one of those people who, like, if we're in class and there's a bunch of discussion or impromptu thoughts being thrown out, I can kind of become disinterested. So for me to be able to learn through people in their discussion board, which they take time to, put their thoughts down on paper and the research behind those thoughts, I think was very valuable. Now, as I'm in the mentor aspect of the class, the one-on-ones and the group mentorship is very important, and I don't think can be overlooked. But for me, during the course, the curriculum aspect of it, not being in a classroom was okay with me. And there's at least, I want to say, 3 group classes throughout that quarter where you will meet with your teacher and your classmates a few times. So you still get that, class camaraderie aspect of it.
Yeah, initially I was looking for an on-campus graduate school experience, and I'm kind of glad that it didn't work out that way, because online's been great. Definitely, it's kind of an advantage to talk to your professors and cohorts in person and get to have those in-person relationships. But the freedom with being online is just so invaluable. And so many students, sounds like Jeremiah and like myself, have other things going on that if it were in person on campus, we probably wouldn't be able to do the other things in our lives as well, or give as much time as we need to do it. So yeah, online, it's an adjustment for me, because I like the in-person aspect of school, always have, but it's been great. So
yeah, thank you so much.
Can I add to that a little bit?
Yes.
I think what you loved is you heard a little bit of different focus from both Jeremiah and Chris, and that's something we value. The university and our programs provide opportunity for students to be as invested as they want to, and as engaged with their peers and instructors as they want to. So as an example, we have an online student advisory and engagement board that our students can participate in. Our students have actually been student body members, not members, but board members or in elected positions. We require our instructors to engage, as Jeremiah said, consistently in synchronous meetings, so they have the opportunity to meet with instructors and peers. They can participate in our research groups if they want to, and show up at conferences, which Chris has and Jeremiah has, and meet us at conferences. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And the biggest compliment I know I hear from our CMHC students is they feel closer to their peers in this program than they did in their other graduate or undergraduate programs that were on campus. So to me, that's a huge compliment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rose, for that overview. So the next question has to do with the dissertation, and this is more towards the program directors, Dr. Rose and Dr. Castillo. So if you can please share with us a little bit about that culminating experience, the dissertation, and basically what it entails. Is it difficult? Are we talking here about a traditional dissertation, like a 300 pages, 5-6 chapters, or what are we talking about here?
So, boy, Laura really makes that dissertation out to sound fun, doesn't she? Mine was fun, just so you all know. So we have moved to a mandatory dissertation model. So all of our doctoral students in either the standalone EDD degree or the integrated degree, like Chris is in, will now be doing a dissertation. And the reason we do this is, again, to really make sure that our students are marketable and eligible for every possible position out there. One of the things that you'll notice if you've read different career opportunities, particularly in academia, is that having that doctoral degree is great, but you have to be able to demonstrate that you've completed individual and independent research. It's something that makes you marketable. If teaching is ever something that you think in the far distant future you want to do, a dissertation is essential. It's also one of the ways to really grow that expertise in an area that you're significantly interested in. So, you know, again, I'll use the example, right? If Chris wants to move forward and really work with performance transitions, the mental health elements that happen when our athletic identity changes from being a high-level athlete to sort of moving into the world, right? Jeremiah spoke about his transition from the military life to being a civilian. There are some mental health and some performance factors that play a significant role in that. Being able to work in that population and devote your energy to that means you need to be an expert in what that feels like and looks like for any client or performer that you're going to be working with. And so really diving into the literature and doing that research and figuring out what's happening there and what the theories and concepts are related to that is only going to make you stronger. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. Graduate school is hard. It's kind of supposed to be. It's one of the reasons that not everyone does it and not everyone lives in that role of expertise. But we don't hang you out there by yourself. We'll actually talk to you about what you want to do throughout the program. As you're taking those content courses, we're going to set you up to reflect a little bit and say, okay, what have I learned so far that is helping me to really shape the research question that I want to ask? You'll be able to get to know faculty all the way through and figure out who can really help me on my journey to find the answers I want. You'll take a course where your whole goal is to select your dissertation committee. Who is the faculty member that you've most connected with, that you have most in common with in terms of your interest for whatever population or whatever topic you want to discuss. And then let's round out with some other faculty members who have expertise in perhaps different places in that topic. You also have the opportunity to choose an outside dissertation committee member, someone who is an expert in a particular piece that can come in and add that additional expertise to what you're doing. We don't do a traditional dissertation anymore. I wrote one of those. They end up being like 300 pages. Instead, what we want to make sure that you're able to do is publish your work. That's another one of those big pieces in the field, whether you're going into clinical counseling, whether you're going into performance consulting, whether you're going into academia, whether you're staying and trying to become more expert in your current field. The ability to put your name and add your work to the research and to the literature is significant. It says a lot about, again, your expertise, who you are, and your competency in the field. So we want to make sure that what you're creating through all of that review, through all of that reading, ends up being about 25 to 30 pages of really significant, compacted information that adds to the literature and that helps to kind of put your name out there as an expert in this particular topic. Let's see.
It's
Forget
much
the other
harder.
hard part, so.
It's much harder to write a shorter document. We all know that this is true. It's much more difficult to be precise and concise. And one thing I really want to echo is that this program is hard for a reason. The work that you do in this program is work, and it's rigorous because the significance of the work that you're doing when you're out of this program as a professional can't be understated. If you're pursuing a clinical mental health degree, you are going to be working with very injured people. That's significant. And in order for you to be able to sustain that work and make a career out of that work, you want to leave this program feeling competent and confident that the work that you're going to be doing is really helpful. You can hear the same when Dr. Castillo talks about the importance of the options in the sport and performance field. The work that you're doing is significant. It can change and impact careers and career trajectories for athletes and performers, for military personnel. We want the graduates to have confidence that there's no imposter syndrome going on here. They have earned their credentials, earned their licenses, earned their degree, and they're proud of what they do for a living.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rose and Dr. Castillo. So the next question is kind of related, and it's about the capstone project. So the capstone project is sort of like the culminating experience in our master's program. So do we have the same for the clinical mental health counseling masters? That's the question. And then what's specifically sort of like the what you are expecting students to present with this capstone project?
I'll start with clinical mental health counseling. I think it's a pretty easy answer. People hear capstone and they think they're writing a big paper, but that's not the case. In higher ed, we really focus on learning outcomes. Learning outcomes that are specific to our fields, and then program learning outcomes. What do our students need to demonstrate they understand, or what skill set do they need to demonstrate in order to become, in essence, masters of the content? And so we rely on formative and summative evaluations of these skills and knowledge areas across the program. We will take, for example, an important assignment in one of their first courses in the term, the ethics class, and their final project in that class is what we call a formative assessment of their knowledge about ethics. In the capstone class, they are rewriting that document. They're going, okay, now that I've been in this program for 2 years or spread it out over 3 years, now that I've had these clinical experiences, now that I've really applied all this ethical understanding in my work with clients, how would I write this paper differently? And we use that as their summative assignment, demonstrating that they're meeting those course and program learning outcomes. So really, it's not as frightening as it sounds when you hear the word capstone. And our graduates often tell me, I can't believe that even I can see the difference in who I was when I came into this program and who I am now with the knowledge and the skills I've developed.
In the SPP program, right on cue. So you will all need to know this if you join us at around this time every day. No matter what he knows, my husband calls and asks me what's for dinner. No kidding, that's what's happening.
And the UPS trucks start to go by and my dogs bark.
So the beauties of being online have more than we've told you so far. In the SPP program and that MS capstone course, the role really is to do an important reflection on, again, those program learning outcomes that Dr. Rose was talking about. The idea is really to look back at those assignments in much the same way that you would in the CMHC degree. Import the feedback that you've gotten from those prior professors. Hey, you might consider this. You might want to think about this. Have you thought about how this would impact a client this particular way? And your job is to really reflect on everything you've done, to review and make adjustments to those pieces and then to resubmit what we end up calling a sport and performance consulting philosophy paper. What you'll end up doing is taking everything you've learned and putting together something that is really a foundation for your future work. Now, that's obviously going to change over time. The more experiences you have, the more you recognize, all right, maybe let me pull this in here, let me pull that in there. But when you leave us, we really want to set you up with a nice, solid foundation so that when you begin your practice, when you begin working, you have all the right things to draw from. The other fun piece of the capstone in the MS program is that we'll actually ask you to write up and create sort of a marketing website for yourself. Share out and create, put yourself on, you'll create a Wix website. Here's what I've done. Here's who I am. Here's what I've learned. And then that can actually be used to, you can link that for possible employers. Hey, here's kind of a history and a story of what I've learned so far, what I've done so far. So we want to make sure that you had the opportunity to be creative and really put a personal touch on how you want to present yourself as a professional out in the world.
Thank you so much. So the next question is for Jeremiah and also for Chris. If you can please tell us a little bit about your favorite class or favorite classes and why these were your favorite class or classes in the program.
I'll go first on that one. I would say psychopathology and appraisal is definitely up there. The structure is just it's great because you have, so I said earlier, there's 10 weeks to the term, and so basically every week you have a case that is made up but drawn from real clinical experiences, cases you might see, certain presenting symptoms that are common or whatever it is, and you basically analyze the case and you write up kind of a diagnostic impression. And so it's kind of a chance for students to put on their analytical hat and figure out what they think might be wrong, for lack of a better term, with a mental health client. And so the learning materials with that class is, the big DSM-5, which is the field's big, diagnostic manual of every mental health condition known to man, and the criteria, and then just a textbook on abnormal psychology or psychopathology, whatever term there is. And so even though I took psychopathology in undergrad as a psych major, this was a chance for me to apply it and use writing skills and analytical skills to be like, okay, here's what this person is demonstrating and why. Here's the diagnosis I justify. Here's ones that might not fit, but we might need to rule out. And here's some other information we need in order to rule that out. And then here's some solutions or interventions I might use to help this person. So it's really fun. It's kind of like putting a piece of it's like putting a puzzle together. I feel like that's how the class is. I know that's been a favorite of some other students I know in the program that don't really have psychology undergrad backgrounds. They come from more athletic backgrounds or performance backgrounds, and this is really their first exposure to psychopathology, mental health diagnoses in general. And even though it was challenging for them, they really enjoyed it. And so that's probably been my favorite.
In mine, I have two, applied sports psych and then the group dynamics one. Applied sports psych, honestly, I feel like sports psychology and all the information you get is incredible. But one quote that I choose to live by is suffering cannot be eradicated by knowledge. So just because you know what to do doesn't mean you'll do it. So when you start talking applied sports psych, like this is what the theory looks like, but this is how you actually use it and what it looks like in the field. So being able to communicate that to individuals where they can actually take the information and then put it in play was one thing that I loved about that. Group dynamics, it was an interesting course to me simply because unfortunately I've grown up, or recently it's been okay, but unfortunately I grew up a Detroit Lions fan. And I've always wondered how you can move coaches and owners and every, players in and out and you still cannot get over the hump. So to be able to go look at group dynamics and how to form championship building teams, I actually thought was really interesting. And I was able to use both of those courses and apply it to the work that I currently do today. So those were my favorites.
I'm
Thank you
going to insert some of their responses to also note that Dr. Castillo and I work very hard to choose instructors for the courses that are not just experts, but that really love the content so that they get really engaged in the teaching. And I'm going to say, like Chris was talking about our psychopathology course, our core faculty member, Dr. Amy Ohana, teaches that course. She's the most amazing instructor and has a passion for teaching this course well, and she just makes it so lively and fun. So you can disagree with me if you want to, Chris, but I don't think you will.
No, not at all. Yeah, she definitely is so valuable to that course, and the feedback and all the extra work she puts into it to help your learning. It's awesome.
Yeah, and on that note, for our audience, if you're interested in learning more about our faculty and what they've done, you can find all that information in our website. You just click under Academics, College of Graduate Studies, click on the program of your interest, of your choice, Sport and Performance Psychology or Clinical Mental Health, and on the right side of your screen, you'll find faculty and staff. So just click on it and you'll have the full breadth of all the professionals that are within each department with their contact information. If you care to also send them an email, they love to just receive emails from our applicants. So we're approaching the end of our time together, and we have 2 more questions for our students joining the panel. So one of the questions is if you have any tips for our applicants regarding the application process, like as far as the essay or how to present or prepare an application, anything that you care to share in regards to just tips.
So I saw one question in the chat that I think will help answer this question too, was for someone being out of school for 10 to 15 years, how do you don't really have an academic letter of recommendation, so how do we mitigate, or how do we navigate that? I've been out of undergrad for 6+ years, and so I didn't have a letter of recommendation from any of my undergrad professors before. I hadn't kept up with them. So what I did was I volunteered like crazy. I was a volunteer research assistant, and then got to be able to kind of be part-time at this outpatient facility. So I had a clinical director of this practice who was able to be a letter of recommendation for me. And then, yeah, I guess just don't be afraid to ask for letters of recommendation from your current supervisors or mentors, whoever they are. I think Dr. Castillo and Laura and Dr. Rose can speak on this if this is incorrect, but I think UWS values that kind of those opinions and those insights from fields, not just in sport and performance psychology, or not just in counseling, but are you an adult who is competent and who works hard and who is able to critically think? And so don't be afraid or think it's inappropriate to include people from outside the field and adjacent fields, I suppose. I'm trying to remember what my essays were for getting into UWS, but I guess just as far as practical advice for the application and the essays, just be honest, be yourself, let your personality shine through in your writing. Obviously take time and to come up with something substantive, but I don't know, just really let the admissions people see who you are, let that individuality shine through, and think of it from their side as, okay, how is this person adding value to our program? What are they going to do that's different or unique in the field? And so be thinking about those things, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll second that as well. My recommendations came from volunteer work. So it came from collegiate coaches and collegiate athletic directors, but I went there and I volunteered to do the work at Division II and Division III schools. And just some years later was able to then still reach out and get those letters of recommendations. Like I was out of grad school for 10 years, but out of undergrad for 13 or 14 before going back in. When it comes to the essay, I honestly feel like this has to be you have to have a passion to want to do this. When we started this program, I met some people early on who, like, they wanted to be doctors, you know, so, okay, well, you can go be a doctor in anything. And if you want to see this entire program through, like, you got to have some sort of passion to want to do it, because the work is manageable. The reading is doable. Personally, I think the hardest part is having something looming over you for the next 3 years while the rest of your life is still trying to continue. And if you don't have a passion to do that, it will be very difficult to kind of see it through. And that should probably come through in that essay. As you're starting the program, you're someone who, regardless of the ups and downs, whether it's something looming over your head or literally told you 10 days you have to move from Anchorage to Tucson, Arizona, and you still want to continue on with the program, that's what it's going to take to see it through. So I'll try to bring that across in your essay writing.
Thank you so much, Jeremiah and Chris. So the last question for today is for our program directors, and is just basically, what is it that you are seeking from an applicant? Like, when you get that application in, so what is it that you will be looking that stands out from the rest?
You know, I during the time that both Chris and Jeremiah were speaking, I was like, I'm not sure there's any need for Dr. Rose and I to be here. That really is the answer, right? We've said it before, right? We've designed this program to really be challenging, to make sure that the work that you do is valued and valuable at the end of your program. And that's going to take a passion for it. We want to know why you care. Neither one of these is the highest paying job in the world. Neither one of these is going to guarantee, you know, your $1 million house wherever. That's not how it works, right? You're working with human beings and you're interacting in a way that helps someone else to be better. You're also not in a place where you're going to be the hero of your own career, right? The folks that you work with are the heroes of your career. And so what's going to motivate you and what's going to motivate us is really that recognition and that understanding that you're excited about the work and about the opportunity to make an impact in somebody else's life, and how you want to do that. The other piece of that is that because we're an online program, we're really lucky. We have folks that live in every state in the United States. We have a number of students from Canada. We have 2 students that didn't know that they live 20 minutes away from each other in Jerusalem. It's fascinating where all of our students come from and all of the different careers and opportunities. So one of the things that's going to be important is what you can contribute to that learning community, right? Jeremiah and Chris are able to work together and talk about things from very different perspectives and very different points of view. And that's incredibly important as we move into the world, right? We are always more and more a diverse society, a diverse performance culture, and your contribution to help someone else's diversity and understanding is essential for keeping this program as strong as it is.
I think the last thing that I will add is that because of what we've done for a living, Dr. Castillo and I, and because of how long we've done it for a living, we really have a good gauge about whether our students are presenting themselves accurately and uniquely when we engage with them for an hour-long application interview. I have a hard time trusting people who aren't reflective, who don't tell me what their passions really are, how they got to those passions, why this field matters, how they're going to be able to sustain themselves in such a demanding field. So when Chris talks about being your unique person and bringing that to the essay or bringing that to the application interview process, this is fundamental, because if I can't get a handle on who you are as a person, then it worries me about whether or not we're going to be able to work with you all the way through the program. And so for me, acknowledging flaws, being truthful about strengths, not worrying about, you can brag on yourself, but you also have to be reflective of your growth areas. That's really important to this process.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rose, Dr. Castillo, Jeremiah, and Chris, for attending and for joining this open house. So I will use the remaining time just to give some updates regarding admissions, just basic admissions information. So you're welcome to just hang out, or you can just log out right now. But I'll just now proceed to give some important information regarding the application. So regarding our deadlines, so we have several deadlines coming pretty soon. So we have the priority deadline for spring 2023. So that's January 27, and we have the final deadline, February 10, for spring 2023. But we are rolling basis admissions. So you can just send your application either for spring 2023 or for fall 2023, and then we'll just process the application accordingly. So our admissions office will actually be on a long week break, but that doesn't mean that you will not receive like any communication from our office. So you can just send your application, and somebody from our office will just acknowledge the receipt of that particular application. If you are unsure about what concentration to choose for the master's program in sport and performance psychology, or for the doctoral degree in sport and performance psychology, whether that is the concentration options for the standalone doctoral degree that requires a master's, or for the specialization pathway, just please feel free to just send an email to admissions@uws.edu so that we can definitely just get to your questions and guide you better, maybe connecting you with the program director or with a faculty member who can explain a little bit more what the concentrations are and which one might be the best fit for you. So the last piece, before I forget, is if you're trying to apply for financial aid, this is the time, either if you're applying for spring 2023 or for fall 2023, we do offer an option for students who want to have like a tryout and see if this program is a right fit for them, which is basically graduate non-degree applications. So if you want to join a class as a graduate non-degree student, please contact admissions and we'll guide you through that process. We're still accepting applications as graduate non-degree. And that will be across all the terms. So, and then I got a question actually, what are the days that faculty staff will be out of the office? So we'll be out of the office beginning December the 23rd until January the 3rd. But, you know, we will be checking our emails here and there, of course, in the middle of the break. But yeah, so going back to financial aid, if you're planning to apply for financial aid, please, this is the time to do so. Also, we're offering a small scholarship between $500 to $1,000. It's called the Graduate Studies Scholarship Application. So if you want to apply for the scholarship before the beginning of spring 2023, because that's what you want, so go ahead and send your application January 27. That's when we need your application in by, and then I'll send you a link where you can access the application for the scholarship. And lastly, if you are considering applying for this program, we are offering an application fee waiver code. So it's 2023 New Year, all together, capital letters. So when you finish your application, go ahead and enter that code. Again, it's 2023 New Year, all together, capital letters, so that you don't have to pay for the application. So I hope that you enjoyed our time together. If you have any other follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to admissions@uws.edu. If you have any transcripts that you care to share, please go ahead and do the same. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me and have a happy holidays. Bye-bye.